Some destinations came up. Let's see what we got here. New ones. First of all, Red, who has this problem, he's making it to Sacramento. He might make it. He's within range. Nobody else made it anywhere yet. So there's some chance he still could get that B&O. But it looks pretty unlikely because Blue is closer and will be going next. Green ended up getting a shot down to San Diego. That's going to be a long run. A little brown train here. And that made me realize another rule I didn't tell you about. The rule book is very densely written. So I kind of, didn't bother reading it. But just kind of skimming it and, as I was going. It's a simple enough game, but I did forget a number of things. One of which is established. So as the green player runs down this blue track, he's paying 1,000 a turn. If somebody bought it up under him, he'd still be able to run on it as long as he stays on it and never leaves for $1,000 a turn. It goes to the new player. It won't. And likewise, when the $5,000 to $10,000 range changes, the increase goes to the new player. Okay. Just to make things a little more interesting. Anyway, we have some others here. Green-black is going down to mobile. That'll enable them to buy something medium-sized, smallish, I don't know. Maybe some of these southern routes. We'll see how things sort of fall, because sometimes it's a matter of perceptions, like I said. The southeast is not very often grabbed. It is not very often rolled, but it's very easy to get a monopoly there. The ACL, SAL, these two lines here connect up in much the same way as the NYC and the Penn do, or the B&O and the Penn, just running together, holding the same cities. So you get a lot of monopolies if you go, you get half of a lot of monopolies if you get one of them. But basically you end up shutting a lot of people out once those are bought. On the other hand, these big guys also shut down a lot, and they're a little bit more common. So they're kind of, usually better players are going to go for them next, but it's often tempting, especially to new players, to go into the southeast. More big things falling. The B&O went over to Blue. He pulled into Los Angeles in time. Black pulled into Mobile. He had lots of money. He's choosing to do what I can never do as a player of this game. Hold off for one of the big ones. Didn't even buy an RFNP to extend his Pennsylvania. I would have almost no chance of making that decision in the game. I cannot save everything. I have to take every... because you're spending a buying opportunity as well that he has here. You can only get as many certificates or as many companies as you enter destinations. Up here, yellow ended up picking up the C&O, the booby prize in the Northeast. That means red has no Northeastern line. They're the ones who I think are going to drop out the worst. But yellow may be in some trouble too. And not getting in the Northeast is a big deal. And in a game above 3 players, well, everyone above that is probably not going to have a line. It's generally worth more, at least in bigger numbers of players, to build track to get you places than to try to close monopolies. So for example, if you had enough money to buy the Penn and the B&O, you wouldn't want to do that. Say it's a 3-player game. Yeah, one person's going to get the NYC. The other guy may ride the NYC more often just because you have a more scary looking position. I don't know. But yeah, closing things out is usually a waste of money because that's money you could spend expanding your rail net, so you only pay $1,000 per move. A lot of players have long runs. Red chose also to save. They couldn't have bought one of the big ones at all and didn't see a reason to add to their holdings right now. But blue heading all the way to Philadelphia, yellow heading to Albany. That's going to be a pain already. They got to pay $5,000 to make the crossing from the C&O up to Albany. And then they have this disconnected NYNH, which doesn't really help them, except that there's chaos up in the Northeast. Red owns the B&M, green owns this line, and yellow owns this one. So that whole Boston is going to require, multiple rail trips for anyone who's getting into there. Really painful. In Portland, obviously, the B&M is at least required. For anyone else who's going in. All right. Around a couple more times, and the only exciting thing that happened was Green made it into San Diego. That didn't get him anywhere near what I thought it would. North Central Chicago to San Diego is only 22 and a half. I thought it would be higher than that. Anyway, that wasn't enough to buy a big railroad. And the way they're looking at it is there's a couple people who didn't buy big ones. They bought medium-sized ones, the B&O and the C&O. And one more who's got a tiny one. And maybe they won't have enough money, but it looks likely they will with this big run. There's a fourth option, though, in the big Southwest lines. Not that the UP is a big Southwest; it's more of a Northwest. And that's this thing called the Western Pacific. And this is one of the things that I often end up sucking down because of my inability to save. It gets you into the Northern California area. You combine it with the DRGW, and it's almost as good at the South as having the UP. In fact, maybe better. It doesn't help you in the Northwest, but you can pick up the Great Northern, which hooks you up to there. You can pick up other things like the CB&Q here, which other people will desire. But there's a lot of neat things to buying this in little bits. The problem is, of course, well, you can buy bigger little bits like the southeastern lines, and maybe they look like they're going to pay off better overall. But you really do need to get out to the west if other people are doing it, and therefore it's the more important thing, because if you're the one who goes out there, the only problem here would be, what if you're the person who goes out to the north, to the southwest, and everyone else goes into the southeast or the north central or closes that out to you? What would that mean? I don't know. I haven't played with a group with that sufficiently different dynamic. Certainly the Northeast is the big shot killer, and the Southwest is your next best location. But dominating the center, I saw one player try to do it on his own, and that doesn't work. You can't dominate a region on your own. So if you're the only person who bought a big Southwestern line, everyone else can kind of ignore you and concentrate on what they think's important. But what if 3 people go one way and 3 people go another? Well, that's where my experience tells me the Southwest is the second area to fight over, Northeast and Southwest. But maybe I'm mistaken. Never saw a group of players go heavily for, say, the North Central early on. And it is also very powerful. The problem with it is several of the players already have power there. So if you get the Penn, if you get the NYC, it's going to be very hard to block you out of there. It means kind of having to extend into the plains. Of course, that may mean that the other players want it, but there are a lot of lines there. So it would almost require someone to actually actively try to achieve monopoly status, which is a bad thing in this game. It doesn't work. Well, I want to cut in because we got to an interesting thing. Blue got to their destination out here in Philadelphia. They had over $40, 46, 48, somewhere in there. Picked up the Santa Fe. To me, this is actually the best of the blue lines, of the southwestern lines. First of all, it's almost as powerful in terms of its coverage of the Southwest as the SP. Secondly, it gives you this nice direct route running down here. Now that doesn't connect up as well with the B&O. It does up here, so it's okay. I was going to say it connects really well with some companies, but actually it connects with all of them. So it just stretches you straight from the north central, where your big eastern line is, all the way down, gets you connecting lines and all kind of stuff. Saves you a lot, and it's a little cheaper, $2 cheaper than the SP. The UP is the other option to get you into the Southwest, but the problem is a lot of the UP's track is built up here in the Northwest. There are other options, cheaper options, that don't usually fall as quickly. It only gets you down to Los Angeles. So you need kind of other options to make the UP really a worthwhile line. So by purchasing that, Black was already running on it. They got a kind of crappy roll, only 5 spaces. They paid $1,000 to Blue. Next turn, they're going to have to pay another $1,000 for this space. Then they won't be established anymore, and if they ever ride it again, they have to pay the $5,000 price. You didn't notice somebody else on the same, green's on the same line. Now they may switch to the SP at this point because they're on a dot that shares and they don't want to keep giving. But essentially, you know, that reduced the price of the Santa Fe by a few more bucks. Blue is getting this extra money that they wouldn't have gotten if they had picked any of the other lines. That helps make the decision as well a lot of times. If somebody's already established on your rail, well, they may stay on it for a while, and they may even try to stay on it because they may fear, for example, if black could stay established on it going up to Denver, they might fear that they're going into the Southwest and might need it. So you can actually make quite a bit of money off of other people's runs this way. Of course, better way to make money off people's lines is when they have to run your track. Let's take a little bit of a look here. So there's one kind of tricky thing here. Remember when I said you got to kind of count before you roll your dice and everything? Well, in this case, the guy who owns the C&O here was kind of in a risky place because I kind of did a guesstimate count but didn't do it specific enough before I rolled. And then when you start moving, if you start moving down a track, he had a 9. It could have taken him beyond Buffalo. If he did, he'd still have to move those spaces. You can't say, I don't want to go. You have to go your full speed that you roll. And if he had gotten, say, 1 point more than what he did, and accidentally gone in the direction he did, he'd pay 5,000 extra bucks for one space. Those are killer kind of situations where you oops, and it's really terrible. Now, some people might not want to play with the rules as written by that just because of that. All right, well, not much more to say. Oh, yeah, the black player picked up the RF and P. He didn't have enough money for one of the big ones. Thinking about a connection line, you could get something like the Missouri Pacific in here that connects to the Penn. The Crip connects to the Penn. These give you a lot of that sort of Central Plains, one edge of the North Central. But the thing is, there's so many rails in here. They're not a short commodity. So he took something that extends his rail line. That brings another thought to mind. These starting locations, one of the things that I always thought early in the game was, when I started playing was, I want to have my starting area. I mean, the first time I played it, that was the first thing I thought. I want to make sure I can get back to my starting area safely. Well, that doesn't matter in this game. It really doesn't. You don't have your starting area, it's going to cost you 5,000 or 10,000, 10,000 bucks because all the rails will be out. 10,000 bucks extra to slip in there. It's not a big deal. You account for it, but it's not something that you add as a major factor in your purchasing decisions. You know you got to go there once. If it's a rare place, you may never have to go there again. And you only have, if you do go there, you only have to go there. You don't have to go there and come out. So it's often cheaper than in other conditions. All right, well, one last thing here. The yellow player bumped into here with one of these bonus double sixes rolls, was able to jump out for free, essentially. So he was here, paid 5,000 to make it here, but then he still had this bonus die, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more spaces. He had to pay an extra 1,000 bucks for that. But hey, that saves some serious money. Now he has to make it to Denver. That looks pretty safe. He didn't buy much. Did he buy anything? He didn't buy anything. There was some thought about the southern lines, but you know, his figuring was if I get a short or medium-sized run, I'll probably just be able to buy one of the big guys, and I want something. All I've got is kind of a crappy line out here in the east. I don't want to end up not in either side of the world. The kind of valuable property in the northeast and the southwest, I don't want to get shut out of both of them, especially since the alternative route, the Western Pacific, is already gone. Sure, you can take the Dirge and pick that up. You kind of need that to hook up to the Western Pacific if you don't get the Great Northern. But that doesn't get you very far. It just screws the guy with the Western Pacific usually. It gets you a little bit, and it's cheap. All right, a couple more little points I want to highlight on another time around. One is the C&O sucks because of its track. It's got kind of this pronging track going in several different directions as opposed to this nice straight track that, say, the Penn has or the NYC cutting through. The C&O gets you some interesting coverage, but it looks like they spent a lot of money laying a lot of track to connect things that aren't important in the game, right? So it's kind of, I'm not sure, how the costs, etc., are determined. But when you come down to efficiency of this eastern track, it's kind of painful. So I'm having to drift down here and then cut back up, and I lose a couple of spaces there, no question. Another is the black train seems to be just rocking along. Oh no, he's just coming from Denver. I thought he was coming from back there, and I'm like, whoa, what happened? There haven't been that many turns. Okay, so the other one is Super Chiefs. These big trains cost $40,000. Now there's an option, and I'm not playing with any of the options in this game. Some of them include buying packages of track. One of them includes making the Super Chief cheaper. It costs $40,000. It allows you to roll 3 dice all the time. It's pretty much de rigueur for winning the game, but you don't want to do it too early. Now, one of the my friend who introduced me to the game wanted to play with. There's also increased net worth needed to win the game. I wouldn't want to do that either. The game's long enough as it is. He wanted to reduce the price of the Super Chiefs, making them more valuable as early purchases, a possible choice there. It's an interesting possible choice. Even with the reductions, it didn't seem worth it. It might be worth it in very small numbers of players, though, like in... no, the less players you have, the more expensive it is. I was going to say $28,000 for 6 players, but you want to get the track. The track's more important. Even those extra die rolls, you don't want to get cut out of the important track. But there is a point before the track all runs out where the Super Chief might be valuable. And the question there is, well, you lower the price, you make that value point a little quicker. All right, I'm going to load this one up and